Hello, good evening, and thanks for being with us tonight here on The Hill. I'm Blake Burman. This is The Hill on NewsNation. Trump, Zelensky, Putin, are they about to be in the same room together? The president suggesting that could be the next step as he met today with the Ukrainian leader inside the Oval Office.
Yeah, we are ready for trilateral, as President said. This is a good signal about trilateral. I think this is very good.
I think you'll see that President Putin really would like to do something else. I think when we set that up, when we do, I think it's going to be when, not if.
The meeting's today global. The president also at the table with top leaders from all across Europe. So is this the art of the deal that is playing out? Mick Mulvaney with me in a moment. Plus, is she a bigger force than actually realized? Why Zelensky had a message for Melania, and what the president said today about the First Lady's role in all of this. Also tonight, reading, writing, and a so-called woke test. What one red state is now doing to certain teachers who are changing classrooms. But first tonight here from The Hill, that Trump-Putin meeting, remember that? That was yesterday's news. Would you look at this right here? The scene at the White House today. Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky inside the Oval Office, seated next to the president. European leaders just down the hall. And then getting a meeting of their own as the commander-in-chief with the next phase in trying to put together what would be his biggest deal by far to date. President Trump revealing a major concession, he says, from his one-on-one with Putin. U.S. security guarantees for Ukraine.
We will speak more about security guarantees. This is very important that the United States gives such strong signal.
The fact that you have said, I'm willing to participate in the security guarantees is a big step. It's really a breakthrough, and it makes all the difference.
When we speak about security guarantees, we speak about the whole security of the European continent, and this is why we are all united here with Ukraine on this matter.
Now, the president said that he plans to speak with Putin by the end of the day about a possible meeting with him, Zelensky, and Putin, the three of them all together, adding he believes, the president, that a ceasefire might not be necessary.
I don't think you need a ceasefire. You know, if you look at the 6 deals that I settled this year, they were all at war. I didn't do any ceasefires.
Of course, all of this follows the president meeting with Putin in Alaska just a few days ago. Remember all this, of course, right? A 3-hour sit-down that ended with brief statements to the press. And it comes amid ongoing Russian attacks after drones struck Ukraine's second largest city. We have coverage tonight all across the globe. Robert Sherman live in Ukraine this evening. But first, just down the road over at 1600, our Kelly Meyer live at the White House with the very latest there. Kelly, as far as we know it, those European leaders and Zelensky are still there at this moment, right?
Still here as of really 1 o'clock today when the leaders first started arriving on the South Lawn, and then President Zelensky arriving here behind me. We know that that East Room meeting ended, a senior White House official tells me, but they did trickle into the Oval Office after that. The president even saying they were going to be in the East Room and then over in the Oval and then head back to their home country. So we don't exactly know just yet how this all went, but it seems to be going well if they are all still here and potentially in this now extended meeting of sorts in the Oval Office. We also don't know yet tonight, Blake, whether or not Trump called Putin during that meeting. There are some reports coming out that he did call Putin already in that meeting and then went back into the meeting. A White House official isn't commenting, basically saying that they weren't in that meeting, but we're working to find out those details. And again, on the potential trilateral meeting, Zelensky formally inviting Trump to attend if and when that happens. Take a listen to this.
We will discuss on the level of leaders during trilateral meeting, and President Trump will try to organize such meeting, and he said that he will come or not come. Ukraine will be happy if you will
both
participate.
Want me there, I will be there.
Yeah.
And Trump certainly sounding optimistic today that that trilateral meeting could happen soon. Blake.
Kelly, it was a much different feel inside the Oval Office today than last time.
Absolutely. I mean, a completely different Oval Office meeting than the one 6 months ago that you and I were both covering. The footage and the images coming out of that, really a confrontation between Zelensky and a ganging up on by Trump and the VP, ending quickly with Zelensky being kicked out and no deals made. Now it's a much different time. We've seen Trump grow more frustrated with Russian President Putin and see him grow closer with Zelensky. And then seeing the show of force, really seeing quite literally European leaders having Zelensky's back today to make sure that kind of confrontation doesn't happen again. And then, of course, you even see his change of dress. I wanted to take a listen to this.
President Zelensky, you look fabulous in that suit.
I said the same thing.
Yeah, you look good.
I said the same thing.
Yeah, looks good.
I said to the one that attacked you last time. See, now I remember that.
Yeah, I apologize to you. You look wonderful. No, my first question for you, President Zelensky.
In the same suit. You see, I changed. You are not.
He said that reporter was in the same suit. And Blake, remember Trump had said to Zelensky 6 months ago he didn't have the cards. He was asked today who has the cards, and he says he doesn't know who has the cards here. So a significant change from 6 months ago, Blake.
Our Kelly Meyer live tonight at the White House. Kelly, thank you. The president actually posting to social media moments ago the following, saying, saying at the conclusion of the meetings, you heard Kelly reference whether or not there was a phone call with Vladimir Putin. I called President Putin and began the arrangements for a meeting at a location to be determined between President Putin and President Zelensky. After that meeting takes place, we will have a trilat, meaning the three of them together, which would be the two presidents plus myself. President Trump posting, he says this was a very good early step for a war that has been ongoing for almost 4 years. The news continuing to unfold here. Our Robert Sherman live in Ukraine tonight. Robert, I know that is fresh reaction from the social media feed of the President of the United States, but it seems as if, and we'll see here, it seems as if this three-way meeting could be on the horizon.
Yeah, one step at a time here, Blake. I mean, I can tell you people on the ground here in Ukraine, they are hoping that that day comes rather soon in which there's an off-ramp from this war and that they no longer have the bombs falling across their country or the sirens blaring like we had earlier today. But there's a double-edged sword to all of these conversations, Blake. While people here in Ukraine, they want peace, they want it to be sustainable as well. And you heard Kelly talking about the importance of those security guarantees. That's something that everyone on the ground here recognizes is going to be critical in order to get something like this across the finish line here. But an even bigger element to all of this, Blake, is you report this new news, this new statement that is coming from President Trump. There's a high level of skepticism on the ground here in Ukraine. As these meetings were taking place at the White House, sirens were blaring in Kyiv. Overnight, there were bombs falling in Kharkiv, in Sumy, in Odessa. At least 10 people were killed. So while people in Ukraine hear that Russia has interests in peace, and they hear that the wheels of diplomacy are moving, to quote President Trump from Friday, there's no such thing as a deal until there's actually a deal signed, sealed, and delivered. Blake?
Robert Sherman live tonight in Ukraine. Robert, thank you. One major issue on the table between the leaders, a possible exchange of territory.
We also need to discuss the possible exchanges of territory, taking into consideration the current line of contact. That means the war zone, the war lines that are pretty obvious, very sad, actually, to look at them. And negotiating positions, President Putin.
Now, here's where things stand at a very fluid moment in time. Russia currently occupies, you see there, parts of eastern and southern Ukraine. Moscow floating a land for peace plan, which means Ukraine will have to give up. You see sort of that shaded area there on the right. They are not yet fully under Russian control, but Ukraine has spent the better part of a decade fortifying the area. Zelensky saying in the past that he would not agree to any land swaps, with the president pressuring him, saying essentially it's the most effective way to end the war. Trump, though, also not ruling out the possibility of bringing in American troops. NewsNation senior national security contributor General Richard Newton with me tonight here on the Hill. So too is retired U.S. Navy Rear Admiral Mark Montgomery. Gentlemen, thanks for being with us. There's a lot of news that's moving right now, and I'm going back into my inbox here because let's pick up where the president just started. General Newton, it sounds like coming out of these meetings today that the next step is for Vladimir Putin and Volodymyr Zelensky to get in a room together. And then at that point, President Trump says there would be a three-way meeting involving himself.
Well, Blake, good to be with you and Mark this evening. You know, I'm going to call that progress. If you think back 72 hours or so ago in Alaska, which really teed up this summit with President Zelensky, then an expansive summit with these European leaders in the White House, along with President Zelensky. I think that would be a good thing that you now conduct a trilateral summit. But the bottom line here, and the president has to know this, you certainly can't trust Putin. He's broken his promises before in ensuing peace agreements, but you've got to start somewhere. You've got to have this senior dialogue. I'm going to call this a good step.
Admiral, let's take a step back here for a second, and let's just look at the cadence. And a lot of this has occurred in the last, call it 72 hours or so. You had Trump meeting Putin in Alaska on Friday. Earlier today, you had the scene inside the Oval, Trump and Zelensky, followed by the European leaders, followed by another meeting after that. And it seems like now the next step could be Zelensky and Putin, and then Zelensky, Putin, and Trump. Is that really what we're looking at here? Is that what you think plays out?
Well, yeah, thanks for having me. And it has been, quite a raucous 72 hours.
Yeah.
That the first meeting with Putin and Trump. Here's what I'd say: the best part of today was having the Europeans present. President Trump has a positive feeling towards particularly Macron and Starmer and Mark Rutte, the head of NATO. And I think having them in the room is an extremely good kind of moderating effect on President Trump. But in the end, they're probably not going to be in the room at the next set of meetings. And that worries me a little bit. And I especially think there's a lot of push-ups that need to be done between now and a meeting where only Zelensky and Putin are in the room. There's just
I understand
disagreement.
I understand your worry, Admiral. And look, you've been on the ground there. You know this inside and out more than I ever will. But I guess it gets to my point of, and I take your worry at your word, but I guess it gets to my point of, was this sort of the cadence to set all of this up, whether you think it's the right move or the wrong move?
Look, I do think the meeting Putin first, then Zelensky with the Europeans is the exact right sequencing. The problem now comes the sequencing going to Zelensky and Putin together in a room. So I do think we're on the right glide path there. We still need to do a lot of definitions like security guarantee, reassurance force, ceasefire. These are words that I thought I knew. Yeah, I thought I knew what those words meant, up till about 3 hours ago.
Details matter. General, I'll give you the last word here.
Absolutely. Details matter. Security guarantees, to me, what that means is guarantees that prevent Putin from even thinking about doing a third invasion and so forth. Also, security guarantees are going to have to be led by the United States, supported by the United States, but with lots of European capabilities there, perhaps troops on the ground, but backed up by U.S. air power, U.S. intelligence, perhaps cyber offensive operations and so forth. Putin has to know that. The only thing he understands is strength, Blake.
Right. I should note there is a report out tonight, hasn't been confirmed, but a report out tonight that Ukraine would be offering somewhere in the area of $100 billion worth of buying American weapons. Whether that's a part of the quote-unquote security guarantee, we will see here in the upcoming hours and days. Gentlemen, I thank you both. I appreciate the perspective. I'm sure we'll be talking again here in the upcoming days. General Newton, Rear Admiral Montgomery, thank you guys, appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you, Blake.
Of course, still to come tonight, here on the Hill. Is it on the test? Why some teachers from blue states, are they now about to have to undergo a quote-unquote America First test in one state? Other side of the break, I'm going to explain to you what that's all about. And I guess you could call it Melania's mission. The First Lady's role in all of this. She was once again brought up today by one of the key players here. I'll explain. I thank you for being with us tonight here on the Hill. I'm Blake Burman. Other side of the break in 4 minutes. If any of these leaders come out and talk, if we get any more information on that, we'll show it to you live. All right, welcome back here to the Hill on News Nation. So teachers from blue states just might have to do some studying of their own if they want to take a job in the state of Oklahoma as a teacher there. A new certification test in that state highlighting what you could say is the partisan divide on education across this country. Starting this week, teachers from New York and California, if they want to teach inside Oklahoma, they would have to pass a test that covers topics like religious liberty and gender identity. Oklahoma officials saying it will prevent staff from, quote, indoctrinating kids with liberal ideology. So is it protecting kids or is this overreach? You might know him by now. He's on the show fairly frequently. Ryan Walters is the superintendent there in the state of Oklahoma, with me live tonight here on the Hill. Oklahoma City. Ryan, nice to see you. So I want to go through this test here, which has been described as America first, essentially, in a way. Here's one of the questions. Your office provided us with this. How many U.S. senators are there? Fairly obvious. You know this. This is on the citizenship test, by the way. But then one of the questions is also this. Why is freedom of religion important to America's identity? What are you trying to do here?
Well, what we're trying to do is very simple. We are trying to do, as President Trump has brought to D.C., bring power back to the states. When we see Gavin Newsom come out and mandate gender theory in the schools, radical lies that they're forcing onto kids, if you come to Oklahoma, we don't do that. We have great history standards, the best in the country, the best science standards in the country. We have a huge recruiting bonus for teachers that move here. We've got merit pay for teachers. They can make up to $100,000. So we have hundreds of teachers coming to Oklahoma from all over the country. What we're not going to allow are blue states that have forced Marxism in the classroom to bring that woke ideology into our state.
Do you worry, and you name check Gavin Newsom, right? And I'm just going to make a generalization here that you and Gavin Newsom probably don't agree on a lot of things when it comes to education. But do you worry that if you go down this path, if you're saying give states the ability to do what they want, that Gavin Newsom could do something in California that you think is off the charts or against America first, essentially trying to Trump-proof or Walters-proof education there?
He is doing that. I mean, he is doing that. Like, this is a response to what we've seen out of California. Our parents have been crystal clear. Get back to academics. This should be a common sense approach to say, when you come and teach in Oklahoma, you will teach the facts when it comes to biology. You will teach there's differences between the genders. You will teach America first history. We want our kids to love this country. We want our kids to understand the history of this country. We are not in the business to create social justice warriors. And that's what New York and California have done. So you're already seeing this. This is us fighting back.
Why is freedom of religion important to America's identity? We can show that graphic again, and you can see the answers there. What does that have to do with algebra and physics?
What it has to do is something we've come so far away from in education. We are here in part to help create citizens to continue the great experiment we know as America, the greatest country in the history of the world. Our teachers have to have an understanding of the basics of American government. We're trying to create good citizens here. And if you can't answer these simple questions and you're coming into the classroom to say, I'm bringing a woke agenda with me, you're not going to teach here. You can do something else, but you're not going to teach in the state of Oklahoma.
Ryan Walters is the superintendent there in the state of Oklahoma, making his case tonight here on the Hill. We'll see you again soon, Ryan. Thank you.
Thank you, Blake.
Of course. With me now, Lauren Wright, News Nation political contributor. She is a, give me your title, professor of something important at Princeton University.
Yeah, that's
Lauren's also, I think that's the official title, professor of something important. Lauren's also writing a book on the politicization of universities, and you say that conservatives, students actually tend to benefit because of liberal universities.
Yeah, if you're in the minority.
If you're in the minority. What'd you make of what you heard there from Ryan
You know, I think it's a well-intentioned design, but profoundly misguided, to be honest. First of all, anyone can lie about their political beliefs. Second of all, and this is the most important, is that every single person on planet Earth has some political beliefs that are probably objectionable to a lot of people. I had a 7th grade history teacher who was a communist. I think you know me well enough to know I am not a communist.
Right.
But you need to teach students how to reason so they can resist indoctrination.
That's kind of what I was getting at with like Newsom, right? Like you could put something in place and then it turns into, to me, it's almost like the redistricting battle in Texas. If it's good for Texas, it's got to be good for California. Or if it's good for California, it's got to be good for Texas, or else it's just pure partisanship.
And not even to mention that probably people from California and New York willing to move to Oklahoma, maybe they're probably more ideologically in line than the superintendent believes.
All right. I'll catch you later in the show.
Thank you.
Lauren Wright, thank you. Still to come tonight. Here on the Hill, is it the art of the deal? Major story still happening right now, really, at the White House. The president meeting with Volodymyr Zelensky. The president saying he picked up the phone and called Vladimir Putin. There could be a Putin-Zelensky meeting with Trump at the end. What is going on? Mick Mulvaney, Chris Cillizza, other side of the break to try to make sense of it.
It was a beautiful letter. It was very well received by him.
Plus, the power of the pen. The president talking about why his wife, Melania, wrote an emotional letter to Vladimir Putin, and a letter that was given to her today. Welcome back here to the Hill on News Nation 6:30 here in Washington on a day in which there was a ton of action. President Trump welcoming the Ukrainian leader, Volodymyr Zelensky, and as you see there, some of the biggest European leaders. All this happening at the White House today, just 3 days after that Putin meeting. The goal, a potential peace deal between Ukraine and Russia. President Trump touting the progress made so far, saying that Putin agreed to security guarantees for Ukraine.
In a very significant step, President Putin agreed that Russia would accept security guarantees for Ukraine.
Joining me now here on the Hill with Where All Things Stand, Mick Mulvaney, News Nation contributor, former Trump White House chief of staff, Chris Cillizza, News Nation contributor as well, and all his Rocky Top glory, as you see there on the shirt, Congressman Tim Burchett, Republican from Tennessee. Congressman, by the way, a member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, thanks for jumping on with us tonight. I'll get to Mick and Chris in a second here, but we got a bunch of news today from the president. And thanks for being with us tonight on this meeting. Let me break it down into two ways. One, he's now saying that a meeting should happen next with Zelensky and Putin, and then after that, Zelensky, Putin, Trump. What do you make of it?
I think I'm just here to hear what Mulvaney says. He's going to have more insight than anybody else. But honestly,
hang around for it. We'll keep you involved with it.
All right. Well, I'm sure I'll get my people are going to call me and say, "Why didn't you say what Mulvaney said?" No, look, you got to get them all together at some point. There's a lot of showmanship here and everybody's rattling the sabers, but it's America's money. We're $200 billion in this plus, and we're borrowing that money to do it. So, yeah, I think Trump's ready to cut the deal. He needs to do it. He's talked about it. And really, he's in his game right here. He loves the fact that everybody's saying that he's against the wall. And I just don't buy that. I think he's in his element. He's in the very gold-laden room right there. I think that must be the Oval Office, I believe. I'm not sure. Maybe that's Roosevelt.
You've been worried about U.S. money and the end, or basically when it stops. Yeah. And you talk about the debt. Every time you're on the show, you talk about the debt. Here's what the president said today in his post. He said, during the meeting, we discussed security guarantees for Ukraine, which guarantees would be provided by the various European countries with a coordination with the United States of America. Everyone is happy about the possibility of peace for Russia and Ukraine. Security guarantees, do you have any concerns on that front? There's a report out tonight that maybe it is Ukraine buying from the United States. The president today didn't rule out the possibility of U.S. troops.
Well, I would like to rule out the possibility of U.S. troops. I think the best thing we have is our military, but I have an 18-year-old daughter, and I dare say I don't want to send her to a war where most war pimps in Congress probably couldn't find it on a globe. But I do realize the reality of where we're at, and I do think that Trump realizes that too. But the most powerful thing we have is our economic ability. There's no secret why they did the meeting in Alaska, largest oil reserves in the world. We got a good deal from Russia buying Alaska. I think Putin realizes too we could shut him down with our energy capabilities. And under this new under this new EPA we've got, I think you're going to see more production, and that we can fluctuate those markets. And I think Putin completely realizes that he cannot do without oil. And so I think there's a lot behind the scenes going on. But, yeah, I think they ought to get them all in the room. and just order Domino's pizzas until they get it figured out, because that's what it's going to take. And all the other Europeans, they're pushing, they're broke and they're all pushing for war. And, we're pretty flush right now, and we need to be backing out of it. If they want this war, let them fight it. We don't need any more of it. We need to get out of this stadium thing, and Trump's the only one that can negotiate it.
Congressman Tim Burchett, member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, with us tonight here on the Hill. You said you wanted to hear what Mulvaney had to say. Let's bring him in. Congressman, thank you. Mick Mulvaney, NewsNation contributor, as I mentioned, with us. So too is Chris Cillizza. Guys, you just heard the congressman say that the president is in his elements, as he believes it. We went through the art of the deal earlier today and pulled out some of the key quotes. Here they are. The worst thing you can possibly do in a deal is seem desperate to make it. That makes the other guy smell blood, and then you're dead. Next quote, my style of deal making is quite simple and straightforward. I aim very high, and then I just keep pushing and pushing and pushing to get what I'm after. Sometimes I settle for less than I thought, but in most cases, I still end up with what I want. Mick, is that what's going on here?
Yeah, there's a lot of that. By the way, I'm going to absolutely steal the term from Tim Burchett, war pimps. I've not used that one before.
He said it on the show here before, too, by the way, I believe.
Did he really? I love that.
Yeah.
I've been using warmongers. I like that one better. So thank you to Congressman Burchett for that. Look, I think what you're seeing is classic Trump. It is. There's another part of the book, by the way, where he says that you have to have fun. In order to be a good negotiator, you have to sort of enjoy what you're doing. And I think he really is. Look, he just met with Putin on Friday and then effectively had what amounts to a G7 meeting on Monday. That kind of stuff just doesn't happen by accident, Blake. And it doesn't happen with any president.
Well, sorry to jump in here. When I was talking to the former general and the former admiral at the top of the show, I pointed out Putin first, Zelensky next, European leaders, bring them all into a room, and it seems like Zelensky and Putin, followed by Zelensky, Trump, and Putin. And it seems like, Mick, that's the cadence here.
Yeah. And the bottom line is this, and Cillizza might agree with this, is that you're closer to a deal now than you were Thursday afternoon. And that's all that really matters. I know a lot of critics, I can't believe Trump did this. I can't believe Trump did that. You're always going to get that with Donald Trump. But the question is, are you closer to peace in Ukraine today than you were 72 hours? And while there's still a lot of questions out there, I mean, a lot of questions, including what is a security guarantee? The answer is it's unambiguously yes.
Cillizza?
I think that's right. I mean, look, I think we tend to prejudge this stuff because the media world, it's like, it just happened. Tell us everything that it means and what it will mean for the next 30 years. I think Mick's right that happens even more with Trump, right? It's either he's succeeded massively or he's failed worse than anyone's ever failed before, 5 minutes after he leaves Alaska, right? Let's see. I mean, if you get in there with Putin and Zelensky and Trump and we leave with a deal that looks relatively good for it's not going to be perfect for anybody, but relatively good for Ukraine, and Europe can be happy with it. That's a gigantic win, right? So we just prejudge everything. I think when it comes to Trump, we want it to either be best or worst. Let's wait and see what he's got planned.
Yeah, I pointed this out on Friday night, Chris. There were 4 people in the beast. It was Trump, Putin, and 2 Secret Service agents. And then throughout the entirety of the meeting, it was the 3 on the Russian side, the 3 on the American side, and the 2 interpreters. The only real thread there of someone who was together, the only people who were there throughout the entirety of that were Trump and Putin. So there's only 2 people who know the whole story, and it's Trump and Putin. Mick, let me leave you with this, on this idea of a possible next meeting with Putin and Zelensky, and then Trump, Putin, Zelensky. Reasonably, or realistically, I guess might be a better word, how quickly do you think that can get turned around?
In an ordinary world, it would take a month. With Donald Trump, it could be this week. This really is one of those types of things where you just throw your hands up and say, look, we're going to make it work. It really is Trump time. You can't go to him and say, well, this president's going to take us 6 weeks to pull together security. He's like, no. This meeting's going to happen on Friday. Make it happen. My guess is you'll see it in the next couple of days.
Yeah, and you talk about in any other world, the president said in this meeting today, he called Putin. So you got to imagine Zelensky's sitting there, the European leaders are sitting there. This is all about when the cameras are off or not there. And then he gets Vladimir Putin on the phone. What was that scene like? I don't know, but I'm sure stories will be told. Mulvaney, thank you, sir. We'll catch you later in the week. Appreciate it. Saliza, catch you on the other side of the break.
Yes, sir.
Still to come. In the middle of all of this, a revealing moment today from the president.
I just spoke to President Putin indirectly, and we're going to have a phone call right after these meetings today.
So this is all unfolding, but here's something that we also learned today. Melania Trump's role and influence in all of this. I'm going to show it to you on the other side of the break.
Tonight, a NewsNation exclusive. A Kentucky judge murdered in cold blood. Did his death uncover a bigger crime?
Who would believe it anyway, because the whole town's doing it.
Brian Enton exposes an alleged courthouse scandal. Tonight on Banfield at 10/9 Central.
Pretty remarkable last 72 hours here regarding the war in Ukraine, the summit in Alaska, and today's meetings at the White House. The focus on several of the main players here, obviously, their impacts and how much they may or may not be willing to compromise. But one person playing a role, the First Lady, Melania Trump. She wrote a letter to Vladimir Putin about protecting the children of Ukraine, hand-delivered to the Russian leader at the summit in Alaska. That letter reading in part, quote, "A simple yet profound concept, Mr. Putin, as I'm sure you agree, is that each generation's descendants begin their lives with a purity and innocence which stands above geography, government, and ideology." President Trump, as he was sitting next to Zelensky today, was asked about that letter.
The First Lady felt very strongly. She's watched the same thing that you watch and that I watch. I see things that you don't get to see, and it's horrible. But when she's got a great love of children, no, she felt it was a beautiful letter. It was very well received by him.
President Zelensky seemed to have been impacted by that letter, led to this moment as well. One of the first things the Ukrainian leader did today on camera was this.
Using this opportunity, many thanks to your wife, First Lady of the United States. She sent a letter to Putin about our children, adopted children, and my wife, First Lady of Ukraine. She gave the letter. It's not to you, to your wife.
I want it.
How about that? Full panel here with me now. Lauren Wright, NewsNation political contributor. Hannah Brandt, NewsNation Washington correspondent. Sabrina Siddiqui is the national political reporter for the Wall Street Journal. And back with us remotely, Chris Saliza, NewsNation contributor. Saliza, I'll go ladies first here around the table, but start with Lauren, because you've studied First Ladies for a while now. This is pretty remarkable. I mean, she's now, I don't want to say front and center, but clearly in the middle of this.
Yes. So what you have in a First Lady is the #1 attention getter of anyone in the government, and you couldn't ask for a better diplomat. They are viewed as non-ideological, but have the inside track on everything, of course, being married to the President of the United States. And so I do think she's very effective and sincere, and she's made moves like this in the past. She even was, people said she was responsible for ending the child separation policy. And First Ladies have done this sort of thing throughout history.
We learned of this over the weekend, of this letter. And then today, obviously, Zelensky saw it, and clearly it made an impact, Anna.
Yeah, absolutely. And Melania Trump is one of the more private First Ladies, right? We don't often see her out in public, but when we do, it a lot of the times connects to children. Remember, just last month, she was in Texas visiting with the parents who had lost their children in the flooding. We saw her. She doesn't usually get political, but we saw her push for the Take It Down Act to protect children from revenge porn. So that seems to be really her soft spot.
This issue is actually key for President Zelensky's wife. Ukraine estimates that nearly 20,000 children have been abducted, Ukrainian children have been abducted and deported by Russian forces. And in fact, in 2023, the International Criminal Court issued an arrest warrant for President Putin and held him directly responsible for the abduction of these children. It's important to note that the First Lady's letter did not specifically mention Ukraine or these abductions, but the sense is that this was an indirect reference to those abductions, which are widely considered to be one of Moscow's most egregious war crimes since their invasion of Ukraine.
Yeah, Chris, to Sabrina's point, it wasn't, directly, but I mean, you read between the lines there, and obviously this is a response to that.
Well, and Zelensky today clearly wanted to say, I mean, he said, our children who have been abducted. I mean, even if she left it vague, he didn't. But I do think it is fascinating of what she has been seen as kind of, there were all these stories that she's not going to live here. She's not in the second term. She's not going to live in Washington, and she actually, I would argue, has been more of a presence publicly in the second term, the first 7 months, than she was in the first term.
Yeah, fair point.
Hannah's right. She is not going to be the Hillary Clinton of first ladies. She's not going to run the healthcare, attempt to reform healthcare. But she has been a little bit more active and public than I honestly thought she would be.
News coming out of the Kremlin, of all places. There is an update now on that phone call between President Trump and Vladimir Putin today. In the middle of this meeting with Zelensky and other European leaders, we believe, Sabrina, we're learning now that, or at least through the Kremlin, that they spoke for about 40 minutes, and that side described it as candid and constructive.
We've had constructive meetings, productive conversations.
Right.
The question is, where does it all go from here? And ultimately, where is there room for potential agreement between President Zelensky and President Putin, who still seem very far apart? It's notable today that President Trump backed away from the idea that there has to be a ceasefire as some kind of precondition for peace talks. He did suggest that the U.S. may take some role in security guarantees for Ukraine, but a lot of questions on what that actually looks like. Is there some kind of peacekeeping force? Is that led by Europeans? Does the U.S. simply provide weapons to Europe, or do you see U.S. troops get more involved? That seems unlikely. And then finally, the question of land swapping. President Zelensky has said that he wants to protect the territorial integrity of Ukraine, and especially to hold on to Donbass, the industrial heartland in eastern Ukraine. So that's something that Vladimir Putin has said that he wants to take control of as part of any peace deal. So there's just still a lot of gulf between the two leaders.
Yeah, there are absolutely a lot of really tricky sticking points. We're hearing a lot of hope come out of these meetings. Everyone seems excited that this is the closest that they've been to peace. But these are big problems that are left unsolved. And those are the things that we're going to be paying attention to if they give any sort of details about how their positions evolve.
It's a really interesting issue because there's a lot of detractors, I think, appropriately saying this is very difficult and these are the sticking points. And Hillary Clinton even said, I'll nominate him for a Nobel Peace Prize if he gets it done without a land swap. But at least he's trying. He's made public assurances that he's going to try to perhaps get them in the room together. He's going to try to foster communication between these two parties. And I wish him the best success, even though I don't always agree on the foreign policy.
Hey, so Liza, the president describing this as security guarantees for Ukraine. European countries would be involved. The U.S. would be involved as well. I'll give you the last word here on what you're looking at over the next 24 hours.
Yeah, I always do think politics and diplomacy aren't all that different. And I do think there's a fake it till you make it vibe that happens in all this stuff. It's kind of like nothing is agreed upon until everything is agreed upon. So I think Sabrina's exactly right. There are a lot of things on which Zelensky has said, absolutely, we are not giving them any land. Putin seems to say, like, okay, well, we want at least some land. That's obviously a huge sticking point. At the same time, I think Trump's view in all this stuff, going back to the art of the deal, is you just have to get the people who can make the decisions
in the room.
In a room. And we'll see. That's his theory of the case. We'll see. He's actually, 72 hours he met with the head of Russia and then basically the entire European, every European leader and the head of Ukraine.
It's moved at warp speed. It has indeed. Chris, I got to leave it there. Thank you, sir. Sabrina, Hannah, Lauren, thank you all. Appreciate it. Still to come here on the other side of the break. I saw a headline today about a secret government plane. It's my take on the other side, and I'm going to explain why that was in the headlines. What's up about this plane? And coming up on Elizabeth Vargas Report, she'll be talking to John Bolton, continuing the conversation of what happens next. My take and what's trending when we return. All right, if you're just getting home, trying to catch up on your day, here's some of what's trending right now on thehill.com. How about this? Texas House signals it will move quickly on redistricting with Democrats back. That's the big political story in Texas. This is the big one in Ohio tonight. Sherrod Brown launches Senate comeback bid. That's news there for Democrats, and you never know what's trending on the Hill. Here's where new Raising Cane restaurants are opening. For those headlines and more, all you have to do is head on over to thehill.com or scan that QR code on your screen. All right, time for my take now. If you thought your summer travel plans came with all sorts of stress that you didn't envision or plan for, you know, like today when all flights in and out of Reagan National here in D.C. were halted for over an hour after a fire alarm went off in the control tower, well, I want you to take a look at a headline that caught my attention. The U.S. military, specifically Space Force, will be testing quantum-based navigation technology as part of a mission to fly without GPS. The technology will be tested on the government's secret X-37B orbital vehicle, similar to that one right there. It's set to launch to the Space Center, or from the Space Center on Thursday, and will be the first time that this technology is tested in space. I, for one, had no idea that this thing even existed. So yes, while flight delays and traffic and impending storms can add stress to your summer travel plans, just remember that our government is working on technology to cool atoms to a temperature of near absolute zero. How about that? I thank you for watching us tonight. I'm Blake Burman. I'll see you tomorrow